1. You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to the Sunset Safari. Although the sun is very far from setting at the moment it is burning the land to a crispy cinder here in the northeast corner of South Africa, the Greater Kruger National Park. We're sitting on the western fringes thereof, on a little reserve called Djuma, and to the west of us is Arathusa, where there were some lions found this morning, but I think they went on to another reserve, so we probably won't be looking for them this afternoon. My name is James Henry. On camera today we have got Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hello there.
Andrew is dressed in a camouflaged hat, which means that he is only visible from the eyes down. It's very disconcerting to see. In the final control this afternoon, we've got the ginger Kirsten McLennan-Smith on the vocals, and tapping away at the keys, Nicola, the sultry voiced Nicola Alston. Now, our plan, in the other vehicle, of course, is Scott Dyson Adonis, and he is being filmed by all 6'3" of Brian Joubert. Now, our plan this afternoon, other than not dying of some form of heat exhaustion or heat stroke, will be just to sort of investigate Djuma a bit. We're on Rusty, so we won't be going anywhere other than Djuma. Rusty's not great on Arathusa to the west of us, so we'll probably pop to the waterholes. We've got this waterhole here, of course, the one at the Djuma Dam camp. We've got one at the Galago camp. There's a waterhole at Buffelshoek Dam. Of course, there's no water in that waterhole, but it'd be quite nice to go and have a look there. And we'll just look around and see what tracks there are at the moment. And for those of you who don't know, this morning, Brent went to see Karula at what we thought could possibly be a den site, and he did in fact confirm that there is at least one cub in the den site. Now, that means that area is zoned, so we will not be going there probably for the next, I would say, almost 2 weeks. We could drive around the area. Karula will move to and from the den site. She'll have to go hunting. She may well want to drink, although leopards don't have to drink. She may well want to go and drink. So we'll drive around that area during the course of the next 2 weeks, but we certainly won't be going down into the drainage line to investigate the den site for at least another 2 weeks. Just let those cubs open their eyes, let them sort of become comfortable with the world, and let Karula become comfortable with being a mother yet again. It's wonderful news, very exciting, and hopefully we'll be able to spend a lot of time with those cubs in the coming months. So that's the exciting news of the day, far more exciting than these buffalo, for example. Andrew, let's have a look at the buffalo, shall we? Now, when I left here 2 weeks ago, it was immensely hot. I think it was probably about 42 degrees. It seems to be building up to that again. It was much better when I arrived back about 2 days ago, but it is building up again. It's very hot once again, and so these buffalo are absolutely loving being in the water, even though it smells absolutely appalling because of that hippopotamus, which has been defecating, urinating, possibly even vomiting in this water, and so it now smells absolutely dire. Andrew, how would you describe the smell? Yes, okay, that's Andrew's way of saying not very nice at all. And then David Russell, you say that you were profoundly excited last night after the sort of postulations that Karula might have a youngster. That certainly would explain her slightly less than happy behavior last night. And David, I agree. I think it's just so exciting. And when that screenshot that someone took has been flying around the place of just these little spots underneath the trees inside that cave. So wonderful, wonderful news there. The buffalo, of course, trying to stay cool, chewing their cud. Andrew, can we have a look at the one chewing his cud? You had such a nice picture of it before we went live. No, not that one, the one on the right-hand side that you were looking at earlier. There we go. Now, if we get right in on his face, there we go. You can see his quite remarkable teeth. And as Andrew said, he looks like he's had some... Oh, he's now drinking that water. That's delicious. Oh, that's really foul. Oh, I feel nauseous. Anyway, he has got perfect teeth. Oh, And he looks like he's had some also very nice to see the snot coming out of his nose. That's an excellent, really excellent start to the drive. Drinking of the sewer water and snotting from the nose. Brilliant, well done, good. Anyway, he has got fantastic teeth, and they of course are used to grind his food into a paste. The food that he eats is of course rechewed because he's a ruminant, and this is the Cape buffalo. Remember, not a what are the other ones called? Not a water buffalo. Everybody often calls these water buffalo because they look quite like the Indian or Asian water buffalo, but they are not. They are the Cape buffalo. They are much less friendly than the Indian water buffalo. Were you to try and milk one of these to make mozzarella, I assure you it would be the last bovid you ever milked. Right, let us move on from here, see what else we can find. I did see some warthogs trotting over the edge of the dam wall, so we'll just go and see if we can spot them in the shade of that jackalberry tree. And while we're doing that, let's head across to Scott Dyson, see what he's doing, and I will see you in just a little while.
And I hope you're all having a wonderful day wherever you may be in the world. We certainly are here on Djuma, and by we I mean Brian Joubert, who is positioned behind the camera, and myself and the rest of the crew, actually, obviously in very high spirits, celebrating the new additions to Karula's family. And isn't that exciting stuff? And well done to Brent and Andrew for getting me that sneak glimpse into the initial stages of a leopard's life. Now, Brian and I are not too sure. It's not to have any fixed plans, because often plans on safari are altered greatly by the animals that you bump into along the way. So sometimes less is more with regards to planning. However, I must say that we do intend one plan to execute this afternoon, that is to head across to Arathusa and see if we can't find any sign of the Nkuhuma lioness. And I'm told we're lurking about that area this morning. So we'll head there, and we're just kind of slowly making our way in that direction now. Just seeing some giraffe tracks. I can't see any more further down the road, so I'm going to bank this one. I don't know if my radio is going to be in the way. No, it's not, so that should be fine. Where is the giraffe track gone? Here it is. What's interesting is that it's not very easy to see at the moment. You can see one hoof. They've got two kind of portions to their hoof, one on the left and one on the right, with a kind of thin ridge down the middle. And to give you an idea of size, let me just jump out quickly. I'm going to take my radio with me. So it's about 6 inches long, I would say, this giraffe track. You can also see there's possibly a very slight depression at the front of the track, and that indicates that it is going in the same direction that we are. So maybe we're going to get lucky. I don't think I've had a giraffe sighting with you guys for quite some time now. How's this for cutting edge technology? Hey? And that just means I don't have to hassle trying to hold the radio up to get signal as we drive along, and it also probably won't get in my way as much as they do when they're just dangling about. And obviously, being out in the African wilds, there are hardships when it comes to getting new equipment and just getting equipment in general. So we are waiting on some new shipments of supplies that will allow us to use our regular base station and earpiece. But for now, we are bobbing and weaving, doing whatever we can to make sure we head out with you guys. Well, this is interesting. Brian and I were actually hoping on finding you guys some monkeys. I saw some in the quarantine clearings as we were heading across to the DRC for lunch before drive, and it appears that James has beaten me to it, so enjoy.
Well, it's not often that you can get one over on Scott Dyson, but here we are with the monkeys that he was looking for. He could, of course, just have gone to my room, where they have been spending quite a lot of time of late. The other day I arrived back home to find that my little room had been raided. They had taken a lot of aspirin. They had eaten a lot of vitamin C, so perhaps they were feeling a little coldy, and they needed a little bit of help on the immune front. One of them left a nice present, a little small puddle of urine on the floor, which was fairly disgusting, but nothing too bad. Were baboons to have raided my room, it would have been an entirely different situation. There is nothing more unpleasant, I believe, in the world than a baboon raiding your room. They are truly, truly foul. When they're not in the wild, of course. Then they're fascinating. They're fantastic animals. Anyway, there are some little vervet monkeys. We're not in a brilliant position for them, obviously, because you're staring largely at a stick. I'm going to try and sneak a little bit back. Andrew, should we go back a bit? Or forward? Now I can see its face here. Let me go forward. There we go. And then I'm sure for those of you who were watching this morning, an incredible sighting of a tiny baby vervet monkey playing with some of the adults with Jamie, and she was at the Gallagher waterhole, I think, and that was a wonderful, wonderful start to the monkeys' day. And thankfully they did not come to my room. They won't come in, of course, if you're in there, which reminds me, I think I've left my windows open, so I'll be holding thumbs that they don't go in at all during the course of this afternoon. Anyway, not a wonderful view of them, so I think we're going to press on a bit. Andrew, are you happy to press on?
Yes.
Yes, there we go. Don't sound so depressed, Andrew. Life will get better. We will find other animals, I promise. You've got to keep these cameramen, you've got to keep them G'd up a bit sometimes. They can get a little down in the dumps if they don't take award-winning shots at all stages. Hello, Brian in Oklahoma. Wonderful to hear from you, and thank you for getting hold of us. And for those of you, I forgot to tell you this in my introduction. I started waffling about various things. You can get hold of us anytime during the drive on #SafariLive or questions@wildearth.tv on the email. So the first one is for Twitter, and the other is for the email. And Brian, you're in Oklahoma. You say you've been watching for 2 weeks and you think this is better than anything on TV. Well, that's good news. I have to agree with you. The last time I watched TV, I found it deeply offensive, basically, the amount that I had to pay in order to view some of the drivel that they chose to show us. Thank you, Brian. And you also want to know if you can find the recorded versions of these shows. You can find them on our website. I think it's wildsafariLive.com, and you can also find them on YouTube. I think our YouTube channel has also got them, most of them, if not all. In fact, I think they're all there. And then they also record them in the final control every so often, and we make highlights reels sometimes, and sometimes we post those. So you can always be on Safari content. The idea, of course, though, is that it's live most of the time. In fact, well, 90% of the time. And that's why we have the waterhole cameras when we're not taking. And this, I mean, for those of you who are new viewers, while we're driving along, it's always a bit quiet in the morning, beginning of the afternoon drives, because it's so beastly hot. For those of you who don't know, and perhaps you're new viewers, this sort of, what do we call it? I I use the term company, but the concept of that is Wild Earth began about 15 years ago with one camera at the Djuma waterhole, and it uploaded a JPEG to the internet once every 30 seconds or so. And so we've come quite a long way from that. I only got involved in May last year, Andrew exactly 366 days ago. But it's been an absolute marvel to be able to take these drives and talk with people overseas. And I remember watching it about, I think when it first started, they used to take 1 or 2 night drives, probably about 10 years ago. And it was in very kind of low resolution because you couldn't send the signal up high enough, and it was probably around a tiny little, it was probably just around quarantine clearings a few times. And after that, it's slowly through the sheer tenacity and obviously technical genius of the people that run the company, it's turned into this thing where we can now broadcast in high definition all around the world. And yes, we experience gremlins, but by and large, it's a fairly uninterrupted stream, which I think is just absolutely fantastic. I was just about to describe the smell of the bush, which is normally very nice, but it now smells like the beachfront in Miami, or probably somewhere in Florida or in Cape Town, because Andrew has just covered himself in, there we go, sunscreen, which is of course very important out here. Well done, Andrew. Must look after yourself. Right. Let's head across to Scott Dyson. He's got some of the most common antelope that we have here, and I'll see you shortly.
Okay, well, I'm hoping there's going to be one more pile of that. There we go. Oh, there's a few more coming. And there's a very large herd moving through some quite thick bush here. All different shapes and sizes, a few males, females, younger lambs. So this is awesome. I thought there was literally only going to be one more that popped through, but there's testament to how big this herd of impala is. And what I'm going to try and do is loop around and try and get you some more visuals of them. They really are beautiful antelope that we tend to overlook simply due to their high numbers. And I guess that's fairly standard practice with us as humans and the supply and demand chain. More of anything that is supplied in general, the less of a demand there is for such creatures. The animal that I've just seen up ahead is not in high supply, and I know we're far now, but I'm just going to bank this view of them because they can be quite nervous. Some warthogs. You can see the one's coat glistening in the sunlight, and that's due to the fact that it's been wallowing in the mud that remains in a small little well just in the foreground, just in front of them. But it looks like they may be heading away from it, sadly. Let's get onto the dam wall and see if we can't get a few closer looks. This is Treehouse Dam. Oh, well, interesting. It seems like James and myself are taking turns finding one another's animals. And earlier I said I was hoping to find monkey. He found them. He was just mentioned that he was hoping to find warthog, and we found them. So I hope that the next animal I find, i.e. James finds, is a leopard. This is interesting behavior. I think we're going to get lucky and see these warthogs come back to wallow. It's simply too hot for them to want to give up. Oh, not quite, not convinced. To give up this little mudwaller. Brian, I don't know if you can, if it's worth trying to just have a quick look at it. There are a few oxpeckers jumping around there. You can see a tiny little bit of moisture and possibly a few little birds popping around there. And that's actually been excavated by elephants, cleverly, as they know that they can get just below the water table. And this is one of the only areas on Djuma that we've noticed where elephants can actually dig and get water quite effectively at this time of the year. We are in a drought, so the water table is far lower than it would usually be. Look at this warthog shaking its head at us. I'm gonna give it a minute or two, and if it doesn't kind of relax with our presence, then I'll probably head off, because I can't help but feel that it's our presence that's making it a little bit nervous, and we don't want to prevent the warthogs from enjoying their mud wallow. So let's carry on. You can see now that it's not convinced. Yeah, don't worry, we're going. You can stay. Stop. Come back. Good, and for any of you who may be joining these live safaris for the very first time, it's important that you understand that we really don't want to interfere with the animals' plans on a day-to-day basis, so we try and be as sensitive as possible when viewing them, and that's a little example of how we didn't want to overstay our welcome and cause any discomfort or displeasure to that animal's plans for the afternoon. And by doing that over time, you will win animals over. And I guess, you know, if you treat humans in the same way that we treat the animals here, they too will kind of eventually gain your respect and allow you to get up close and personal for some wonderful viewing. Looks like we've caught up with these impala again, but they are in the mood for stretching their legs, as you can see. What I want to try and do, it seems like they're quite vocal because there are so many of them. They're doing quite a lot of chatting amongst one another, and they've got the most bizarre way of communicating when they kind of generally chit-chatting, and it sounds like funny little burping with one another. Whew, it is hot. And as soon as we stop the vehicle moving, the lack of wind over our bodies makes it quite unpleasant in the sun. Hi there, Ramona in Germany, and good to hear that you are concerned about the well-being of Karula and her cub, possibly cubs, maybe even 3 of them, let's hope. And the main reason that you are concerned for is that they could be washed away if there's floods, because their den site is in the walls of a riverbed. And no, I don't think there's a strong chance at all. Even if we get very, very strong rainfall, I doubt that it would flood that high up the banks of that riverbed. It's exceptionally high up, and due to the fact that we're in a drought at the moment, I think that is not going to be a likely cause of fatality to those cubs. What I would be more concerned for is regular reasons as to why leopard cubs are killed. And a reason why most leopard cubs do not survive to maturity is not because they get washed away in floods, it's because they get killed by hyena, male leopard that didn't father them, and or lion as the 3 main causes. But even an animal like a python can easily consume all 3 of those cubs in one sitting. And it wouldn't be the first time that that happens to either leopard and or other predators. I've seen that happening with leopard and with jackals in the past. The parents return home to an engorged python with lots of little bumps in its belly. So don't think too much about the kind of far-fetched possibilities that could cause fatality. There's very common causes for leopard cubs not to survive till adulthood. And I'm guessing those will be the ones that would be the cause of any deaths in this scenario. Hello to Rose in Pennsylvania. who's interested to know how many litters has Karula successfully raised, and she's raised 4 litters to adulthood of 2 cubs in each litter, so 8 cubs to adulthood, of which 2 we've seen quite recently, one being Shadow and one being Tundi, 2 sisters. The last 2 and the most recently raised were Kunyuma and Quarantine, who we also see every now and again. They're 2 young boys that are still around but don't spend much time on Djuma anymore. They've moved further to the south and to the east. The other 4 I don't know too well and don't know where they are at the moment, but I think they are still around. But we only kind of get to see the litter, the first 2 offspring, 2 girls, and the most recent litter that was raised successfully, the 2 boys. Now, in December last year, 1 cub was killed from one of her litters, and I'm guessing however many cubs she did have in that litter, probably 2 or 3, were also killed prior to that last one being killed by a hyena. So it was the first time any cubs of that litter had been seen, and sadly, like I say, within minutes of seeing the cub, it had been killed by a hyena. Thereafter, it took the whole of last year, we didn't see any little cubs. And I'm convinced that she would have given birth at some stage last year, but we just didn't know where her den was, and then her cubs would have been killed again. So I'm convinced that she's had at least 6 litters in her life, 4 of which have been raised successfully. The most recent 1 definitely, and possibly 2, not so much. This is the 7th, I'm guessing. And let's hope that she gets lucky with raising them. You can see what I mean by a never-ending stream of impala. I don't think there are too many more that are going to be passing by, though. A very, very large herd. Aha! Paul Rizzo, you seem to think these impala are a little bit more nervous than normal and are wondering if there are any big cats around. I hope you're right, Paul. They don't seem too nervous to me, to be honest. It's not very windy. They've just got a little bit of a spring in their step, which is strange. But maybe they have caught wind of something. Whichever predator is here is going to have its work cut out for it, though, because with this many eyes and ears to detect a predator, like I said, it's not going to be an easy business latching onto one of them. I think it's mainly the fact that the vegetation was quite thick that we saw them in, plus the audio of our vehicle and our presence may have got them a little bit nervous and got them running. Or maybe it's just the fact that there's a lot of youth within the herd with all the young lambs jumping about. I think that definitely is going to have an effect on the parents and put a spring in their step. No difference, I guess, young kids hanging around human parents and installing a little bit of youthful joy into their lives. Bill Burkett, you would like to know how big is an impala? And let's try and break this down for you. The book that I have here is quite useful because it has a little index which will help me find the animal, so that's not what I'm hoping for. But the main thing I'm looking for is an illustration. All my pages have stuck together, obviously from a little bit of recent moisture. Oh, index to German names, index to scientific names. This is not going as smoothly as I would have liked, and it seems like the most important page is the English index to English names has been stuck together. There we go. Where are we looking? 162. Okay, so if we look at this picture first here, it'll give you average human size in relation to an impala. But I can give you more than that. Their shoulder height is usually just under 1 meter, and their weight is often around 50 kilograms, so about just over 100 pounds. So I'm not sure what kind of dog fits into that category. A dog or an animal that we can relate to on a kind of more regular basis is going to be tricky because they've got quite long legs, longer legs than a dog, but not as heavy as a dog that size. So it's not easy to give a easy animal to relate to, but like I said, the average shoulder height of around 90 centimeters to a meter will be able to give you a good idea of how big that animal is. Cool, well, we're going to continue seeing what we can find, and I think you should go across to James for an update on how he's coming along.
Right, well, we are driving towards Buffelshoek Dam. Now, oh, I've still got my glasses on. Sorry about that. That apparently that's very rude of me. I'm sorry. It's just that my eyes, of course, are being crisply burnt, crisply cooked by the sun this afternoon. We're going to go to Buffelshoek Dam. Of course, there's no water there, although there was some in the puddles of the elephant's feet the other day. And so we'll go and see what's there. And then we probably are going to check a little, excuse me, we're probably going to check where Karula last had a kill. Andrew told me that when there was a duiker in the kill there, a duiker in the tree that Karula left before she'd finished. And Scott then guessed that perhaps something was up and she might be going to give birth. But let's go and see if anything else has taken that out of the tree. And perhaps Mvula will have come and snacked on the last of his consort's food. Now, the question, of course, remains as to who is the father of these young cubs. And interestingly, she has mated, of course, and she's mated with Tingana, she's mated with Mvula, she's mated with Anderson, so who knows? And Ginny, I think you asked the question as to who the father is. There is absolutely no way of telling short of doing a DNA test. And of course we will try and do that. You can do that from the scat, from the dung, and we've got DNA profiles for all the males of the area. We've got DNA profiles for Karula. And so as soon as these little ones start putting dung in a place where it's accessible, we'll go and get hold of someone, we'll do a DNA profile on them. And that should give us an indication. There's an impala running away into the deep shade. That should give us an indication as to who the father is. I've no doubt that there will be lots and lots of guesses as to who the most likely candidate is, and people will be able to see familiarities in the two cubs, if there are two. I'm guessing that there are probably two. They'll be able to see familiarities with the different males in the area. But I assure you, there goes a duiker, that there is no way to tell unless a DNA test is done. And what is interesting to me is that she has mated with all three of them. Tingana largely, I mean, Tingana is the most likely candidate as the father because he mated with Karula, I think 3 or 4 times. And so he's the most likely candidate. But who knows, it might be Mvula, it might be Anderson. And the reason she will mate with all those males is so that all of them think that they have produced her offspring, which just reduces the chances of them killing the cubs. Because of course 80% of cub mortality is caused by male leopards. Infanticide, a great strangeness in the mammal class. Very common amongst just about all the families of mammals. You can see I'm just, I know we had a bit of a break in the drought and there was grass went a bit green, but it's already going brown again. The trees' leaves are all closed up. They're hiding from the sun. The shade is kind of wispy. There's no deep, beautiful shade that we often get at this time of the year. And it's just got that really hot kind of dry feeling. No clouds building on the horizon, which means that it's just going to get brighter and brighter until the sun eventually does set. And I must confess, I've never experienced a low-felt summer like this one. This has been the hottest, brightest and driest summer that I've experienced in 10 years out here. Hello, Darlene in New Hampshire. Very lovely question from you about orchids. Of course, one of my favorite flowers out here, the leopard orchid, which you know about. And you want to know if there are any other kinds of orchids out here. Darlene, there aren't any that I know of. I just don't think it's wet enough. Certainly in South Africa, plenty. Down in Natal, in the sand forest, you'll find, if it's not hundreds, it's certainly almost 100 species of orchid, and very difficult to identify. Little ones. They're not those sort of amazing things that you buy in the shops these days that they grow in pots, the huge blooms. Tiny little flowers, often just a few millimeters across, fractions of an inch in length and size. And I know one of the guys I used to work with became something of an orchid expert. He also went slightly mad, so that might have something to do with it. But no other orchids that I know of in this particular area, no. Bee eaters calling above us. I'll just try and find some shade to stop in when we look at this dam. There we go. Well, I'm in the shade. Andrew, are you in the shade? I'm in the shade. Oh, look. There's a water buck. Hello, water buck. Now, that water buck, everybody, well, let's just watch him first before I start yakking and making myself look like a fool. What I suspect that waterbuck cow is doing is now enjoying that greenery. And the reason the greenery, of course, has survived as long as it has is because that mud there is very tricky to get in and amongst. Andrew and I have first-hand experience of that. But still, I mean, Andrew, we went into Christmas Day, which was now more than a month ago. It's actually sort of 5 or 6 weeks ago. And still, there's mud underneath there, which makes the going very treacherous indeed. And that's why that greenery persists, despite the lack of greenery everywhere else. I think there was an elephant trying to eat some the other day. The elephants won't struggle too much, but the antelope will really kind of cut themselves and slice their legs as they try and walk amongst that clay, infused as it is with their fish bones, sharp, nasty, razorish fish bones. So that's a waterbuck. And for those of you who don't know, they're pretty common around here, more common than anywhere else I've worked before. And we'll be looking, I mean, they're called waterbuck because they're supposedly rush to water when threatened by predators. Yes, they do, but so do many other animals. She's quite beautiful, isn't she? Hello, Brandon. You're in Arkansas. You're aged just 6 years old. I was aged 6 once, if you can believe it. I know it must seem absolutely impossible that somebody of my advanced years could possibly have ever been 6. And you say that your parents also would like to see an elephant. Well, Brandon, we will do our best to find your parents an elephant, but I hope also that you want to see an elephant. We might be lucky and we may well see an elephant today. It's a nice hot day. And so it's quite possible that the elephants will come down to drink at some stage during the course of this drive. I will tell you, of course, that waterbuck have got a heart-shaped nose. Yes, I suppose they do. Look at that, I suppose the black part of the nose is very heart-shaped. And she's trying to smell what we want, you see. She can see us. She can smell sunscreen, which is, of course, an unfamiliar smell to her. And the wind's blowing from us to her, and that's why I suspect if we were sitting the other side of the dam there, that she'd probably get on with eating. But because she can smell us, she's just a little bit more wary. I'm very glad I don't have to wear a coat quite that thick when the temperature is like it is now. There we go. Lovely red in her eyes there. You can see how difficult it is for her to walk. Yeah, look at that. Now that will hurt. It will hurt her feet. It'll certainly slice into her legs. Very graceful. And she's in pretty good nick, you know. She's not in bad condition. The drought has obviously not taken too much toll on her. That's a little alarm call she's given because she can smell us. Her coat is shiny. Her hips aren't sticking out. So she's doing pretty well. I'm sure lots of the animals would have grazed and really extensively in the last few days after that little bit of rain we had and the green flush that lasted for about 3 or 4 days. Talk on the weather forecast is that we should be getting rain, probably if not tomorrow, the next day. But tomorrow, of course, it will have moved to Friday, and by the weekend it probably will have just dissipated entirely. There we go. Let's try and see if she's going to try walk back in there. You can see she's sinking. That's because there is still mud there. And she'll be nervous to go in there because she knows she can't move very quickly if she does get stuck in there. And she's not convinced that we aren't going to try and eat her. I don't think we will though, will we, Andrew? No, probably not. There's a nice cooling breeze blowing now. And I believe that Scott was chatting to you about the sizes of the different antelope that we get out here, and he was talking about an impala, where a big one weighs probably between 60 and 70 kilograms, which if you multiply it by 2.2 gives you roughly between 160 and 180 pounds. Now, this waterbuck is probably the same size as a kudu. So a big male will weigh in the region of, in the vicinity of 100 or 270 kilograms. I'm just going to check that on my little bird, on my little mammal app, which is quite a useful thing. And so roughly kudu sized and kudu massed. There we go. Come on, eat something. You can see how nervous they are all the time when they go down to water. Any kind of herbivore will be extremely nervous when they go down to water or into an area where they know they can't move very, very fast. Oh, look, she's got water. Look at that. She's drinking straight out of an elephant's footprint. We'll go down there and have a look when she's moved off. That's interesting. And that won't be delicious water. But, as I've said many times, of course, these animals don't have to worry too much about the bacteria and stuff in the water. I mean, were you and I to drink that water, we would certainly spend quite a lot of time in the lavatory for an extended period. But the animals out here can cope with that sort of thing. So yes, I was absolutely correct. That's a complete relief. The males weigh 198 to 262 kilos, which is 437 to 578 pounds. So this female, about 280 or so kilograms, roughly 400 pounds. She's smelling something on the wind there. Maybe Mvula stalking towards us slowly. It's an interesting question from Mr. Moustache, who's now in Iceland. Mr. Moustache, I'm pretty sure that you didn't begin your Safari Live days in Iceland, but Iceland sounds like quite a nice option as we sit here, the heat here, and you want to know about whether or not animals here are susceptible to heat-related illnesses. No, I don't think they are. I think they're actually really good at losing heat most of the time. And you know, we complain a lot about the heat, or we make mention a lot about the heat It's, you know, it's not desert temperatures here most of the time. It has, well, I mean, we've certainly had them this year, but most of the time the animals will, they will avoid the open sun a lot of the time. They'll go into the shade. I suppose, yes, they could perhaps suffer from heat exhaustion if it got really hot and there wasn't sufficient shade. But no, they're pretty good at getting rid of the heat and avoiding the hottest part of the day. And I was just saying to Andrew, I'm feeling the heat today, and I think it's probably because, you know, when we're back at camp, we're in our rooms, and I was doing some tapping away on a computer earlier today, and I think, you know, in the absence of deep shade and a nice breeze, I think our rooms do get very hot indeed. And human beings are supposed to be really good at getting rid of heat. That's why we don't have any hair on our bodies. It's why we stand upright. One of the major reasons we stand upright. Right, I think this water buck has given us all it's going to. Right, and Annie, you say that waterbuck remind you of reindeer in shape and size. I have actually seen a reindeer. They've got some on the golf course where I sometimes play in the Eastern Cape. They do. They're very similar size. You're absolutely correct. What I'm going to do is make my way around to where that where that reindeer was drinking, and we'll head across to Scott while I do that, and I will see you at the water.
Well, surprised to hear that the waterbuck actually found anything to drink at the Buffelshoek waterhole, and happy to hear that you got a good sighting of it with James. We haven't been seeing too much, however there are some zebra tracks moving down this road, so maybe we'll bump into some zebra. There were some elephant tracks heading up the road. Oh, well, there we go. There's an animal that just popped out right in front of us. A wildebeest. I'm guessing it's not alone. It could well be a part of a herd. Well, he's a big bull, so who knows? Maybe he's semi-retired and living life alone. Oh, I think I may have chosen an inopportune moment to freewheel, because as you can see, there's a lot of vegetation between us and it. I'm told there was a lot of safari goers on the Sunrise Safari who were wondering, let me just try and reposition, wondering where the herds of wildebeest have gone. And they're around, I think. They might actually just be right here with their young calves. A lot of you have been wanting to get updates on those calves. Interestingly enough, they spend almost every night. Oh wow, look at this. Awesome. Take some screenshots. This is incredible and typical behavior from a big bull. And you may have seen some little pellets falling between those back legs of his. He just went to the toilet after scraping his hooves in the ground there, and it's not uncommon for them to also urinate after performing that little maneuver. Just don't want to start the vehicle because we are quite close to him. But good confirming behavior of what would be the dominant bull of the herd. And then just behind him to the right, I don't know if Brian's got the right angle. I don't think he does. He's a bit higher than where I am, but just off to the right, the rest of the herd seem to be sitting in the shadows. But no, Brian's got a wall of thick green vegetation in the way there. So let's move forward and see if we can't get another gap. As I was saying, though, interestingly, every night the quarantine clearings, the clearings close to our camp, looks like a city when you drive past, with all the eyes full of animals, of which a lot of the time the wildebeest are there. But they only arrive there late in the evening. Maybe we'll try and camp out there later on this evening. There's a little gap where we might just be able to see one calf lying down there next to its mom. Yep, there we go. Little horns protruding already, just a few months old. But this is the best view we are going to get. If any of you are joining for the first time, which I'm sure there are some of you, please let us know. And importantly, I would just like to let you know that we only off-road for animals in the big five: lion, leopard, buffalo, rhino and elephants. But we don't show rhino, as well as cheetah and wild dog are another two animals. So it's the magnificent seven that we will drive off the roads for, but the other animals we will not. And if you'd like to know any other questions, or let us know who you are and where you're watching, if it is your first time, please do so. And it's quite simple. All you do is hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. And if you are not a Twitterer, then you can send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. And we really do always love to know when new people are joining us on Safari. Of course, we love the regulars, but it's always a very exciting feeling knowing that somebody is joining in on their first live safari. Understandably, as I would, I find it, well, a lot of people find it hard to believe that it's actually happening live. So it's quite nice to also just confirm to people by answering their questions that that is in fact the case. And like I said, I know for certain if I was to stumble upon this little safari experience on the internet, I would have huge doubts to the fact that it's possible to be broadcasted live. So I'm on the same wavelength as all of you that do ask those questions. Well done, John, along with many others who got some great screenshots of that wildebeest. The girls in FC are applauding your photography. And well done to Brian for getting the camera there in such quick speed as well. Good. We're going to send you back to James.
Linking.
Right, everybody. I think you can hear me. Andrew, can you hear me? You can hear me. I'm just going to show you where the was is. It is here in the elephant's footprint. And I will show you the water. My hands anywhere near my mouth now, because as Andrew said, it will result in Jippo guts. And for us, with our slightly longer feet, there's lots of water here. Of course, it's easier for us to walk here than it would have been for that hapless waterbuck, but it's still not that easy. And in this particular elephant, interesting, water under the dam is a treehouse dam, and
Well, I bet you didn't expect to be back with Brian and myself so soon. But again, emphasis on the fact that this is all happening live and there are some technical gremlins that jump out and make our lives a little bit tricky from time to time. But I'm sure it won't take long for James to get back into a better signal area. So we're not too far from the boundary, invisible boundary between Djuma and Arathusa. It's only a road, and only the humans know of the boundaries here. The animals have got free rein. But we are going to cross over onto Arathusa, and I'm hoping that we manage to track down the Inkuhuma pride of 4 lioness, which are over there. The other lioness, I'm told, is still on the other side of Djuma. So Arathusa's on the western side, Torchwood is on the eastern side, and one of the lioness from the Inkuhuma pride is still with the Birmingham males. I'm told they were mating quite intensely a few days back, but that subsequently subsided, so they're not mating as readily as they were about 4 or 5 days ago when they first came into contact, but they're still hanging out, so who knows what exactly the story is there. It's very difficult to go on other stories and tales you hear along the Bush Telegraph, because I found that often leads to kind of misinformation, and it's better just to make assessments on animals and what they've been doing if in fact you have seen them yourself. So not too sure exactly what's been going on, but that's what we've heard. Just pulled over there to check for tracks. There was just some buffalo tracks being followed, it looks like, by a couple of hyena. I was thinking that there may have been some lion on the trail of those buffalo, which would have been great. Hello to Kevin, who would like to know if Karula will do any hunting within the first 3 or 4 days of giving birth. And yes, there's a strong, very strong chance that she will. But again, it'll vary in each different leopardess's scenarios and sequences of events that lead up to her giving birth. If she did give birth last night, and we cannot be 100% sure that she didn't give birth the night before last, and we simply didn't see any cubs there yesterday. So that's the first speculation that I'm going to make, which makes further analyzing this a little bit tricky. But like I say, I mean, even though we were there for a long time yesterday and didn't see any cubs, we didn't crawl into that little den and poke our head in and make sure for certain. So maybe she didn't give birth to the cubs last night. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Then the second thing is, when she arrived at that den yesterday morning, she was full belly, which means that maybe she's not going to be hugely pressed to make a kill in the next 3 or 4 days. Whereas you can imagine a leopard who would have been very hungry at the point of giving birth, then she would certainly need to hunt within days of giving birth. And yeah, that just makes you understand that there's so many variables that it's so difficult to answer those questions conclusively and concisely, because nobody can be sure. Keith, and I think Michael as well. You interested to know if there's any chance we could set up a cub cam with live footage from the den? Trust me, I've thought of this as well, and it would be wonderful if it was possible, but it's going to be something that's very tricky to do. A couple of reasons why. Obviously, you're going to need to put in quite a lot of infrastructure, maybe a solar panel, you know, some electrical stuff, the camera itself, and even if it was a quick and easy installation, which it wouldn't be, even if Karula was away from the den and you had a vehicle with her, you knew she was nowhere near those cubs, you would have to get in and very close to that den, which probably wouldn't have any effect on the cubs, I don't think. But when Karula got back to that den and smelt all this human activity around the entrance to it, I don't think that would be you know, a good move on our behalf. So as wonderful as it would be to gain insights into a leopard's den, I don't think it would be the right move to do, because like I say, she's going to arrive back there and smell that we've been right at the entrance to her den, and I'd prefer her not to have any thoughts, be it good or bad, about why we may have been snooping around. They're not worth taking the chance. Then, on top of that, and probably more importantly, leopards will move their dens sometimes every 3 or 4 days, especially in the early stages of giving birth. And obviously it differs from leopardess to leopardess, and from den to den, and from one set of cubs to another. But she could very well, in a short space of time, move those cubs, and then we're going to be left having to cross the same bridge as before, having to get up close to the cubs while she's not away. It's just too much to gamble. And as wonderful as it would be to gain insight into that, at this stage I don't think it's a feasible option. But with the way technology is going, that could well change. So maybe in the future we could be able to rig something up with a lot more ease with a zoom camera that doesn't have to be too close to the den, sure. But for now, don't think it's going to happen. Hi there, Tammy, and you would like to know the likelihood of humans intervening to help these cubs in any way because they are endangered and because they've got an 80% mortality rate with the cubs. And Tammy, as far as I'm aware, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I don't think leopards are endangered. So that's the first thing. I know a lot of the time people will intervene or will be happy to intervene. Sorry, let me just get my radio out the way. Will be happy to intervene if the animals at risk are endangered, but leopards aren't as far as I'm aware. And on top of that, Tammy, I hear you, but what good is it going to be rescuing a leopard cub unless you can be certain that it's going to continue growing up in the wild? I think there's enough leopards in captivity to justify no more going that direction. And for me, basically, if leopard cannot survive in the wild and there's already a stockpile of leopards in captivity, I don't think we're going to be doing any animals any favors by trying to help them, because for me, and again, this is just my opinion, unless an animal is growing and living and succeeding in its natural habitat in a wild open space, I don't really see the point in having too many more in captive environments. I mean, that goes against everything that we do. We want animals to exist in the wild, and that's where they belong, and that's where they can be leopards, where they hunt for themselves and they do leopard things. As soon as we take them out of the wild, then to me, you know, we might as well just have domestic cats. But again, that is just me, and I don't think by intervening in any way necessarily it is going to help. The fact that there's an 80% mortality rate has been happening since the beginning of time, since leopards were first walking the planet. So by going and trying to help little cubs now, simply because of that high mortality rate, I don't think is the solution. Again, you know, Tammy, there's so many variables, and unless a question like that is posed with very strict, you know, circumstances, like if the leopard cubs were being eaten by a python, would you intervene? Or if the leopard cubs were found being smuggled out of Johannesburg International Airport, would you intervene? Because I'm not too, it's difficult to gain insights into what you may thinking may be happening to these animals, but the finer details in these kind of questions is critical with regards to how you can answer them. James has not only found some signal, but he's also found some stripes. See you later.
Zebra, 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 everybody. We have come down the cheetah cut line where there is a nice clearing and there are some zebra grazing in the sun. So nice there to see, I suppose. Ooh, you probably can't hear me. Hang on. There we go. You can hear my deep voice now. The microphone was on my knee as opposed to on my shirt. We were just chatting about heat exhaustion, and Mr. Moustache was asking about Iceland, or not asking about Iceland. He's in Iceland, probably freezing. And You were asking about heat exhaustion in the animals, and here the zebra are, of course, standing in the full sun. I mean, it is starting to cool down a bit, so I suppose the crepuscular nature of most of these animals, that means the animals active at dawn and dusk, their crepuscular nature will allow them to move around about now. And I think you would have found that, or you will find that they've just probably come out of the deep shade where they will have spent most of the heat of the day. There's also, of course, a lot of, nobody really knows for sure why zebra have stripes, and a lot of human beings with a bit too much time on their hands and not knowing what to spend their money on have done all sorts of research projects as to why zebras should have stripes, and one of the thoughts is that it could be to get rid of heat. Now, I personally think that this belongs in the same realm of sanity as Scientology, but the thought is that the black stripes and the white stripes, of course, attract and reflect heat at different rates, and that sets up some kind of convection current around the zebra, which apparently could maybe perhaps sort of a little bit reduce the heat that the zebra experiences. I think that's nonsense. I think it's simply to do with the fact that they were certainly not camouflaged, but it helps them to hide, helps them to dazzle their predators as they run through the woodland. Their predators, of course, being colorblind. Anyway, it's a very still afternoon. There's a little breeze coming out of the southeast, as I said, and that's where the weather normally comes from if it isn't a storm, and so that would be the prevailing breeze around here. And the zebra, they look very calm and collected. I don't think they'll like this time of the day, because the predators are not moving around at the moment, and they'll know that, and so this is a good time for them to eat, do what they have to do before the serious business of the night starts, and they need to be super aware and on top of their game. Right, let us pop down this cut line. Very nice question from Wade. And Wade, you're a new viewer. I always like to do this particular way of driving down this cut line. I find it liberating, really, and it's a nice straight road. If you do hear a yell, it's because I've driven Andrew through a branch and he's fallen off the car. But as long as he locks off the camera, we won't worry about him. He'll catch up with us later. Wade, you want to know if these live safaris are only done... Oh, there's a little foal. Look at that. Look. That's very sweet. Wait, I'll get back to your question now. I'm just going to sneak forward. Beautiful little foal. And I'm always amazed when you see that thing. I don't think that can be more than, maybe a month old, but not more than that. And of course, a cat or a dog aged a month is still almost completely immobile. They can move a little bit, but they're still so vulnerable. Whereas a month-old herbivore, like a zebra or an impala or a kudu, is mobile, fast, and almost impossible to catch. So let's just sit and look at this zebra for a while. And Wade, I'll answer your question. You want to know if this happens only during the summer months or if it will happen also during the winter. Wade, actually, this part of the world is probably most pleasant during the winter months. It really doesn't get very cold here at all. 4 degrees or so is the coldest we had this year, and that's not 4 degrees Fahrenheit, that's 4 degrees centigrade, which in Fahrenheit is probably about 45, I would guess, somewhere around there. So that's not cold at all. And then the days get up to about 27 or 23 degrees, 24 degrees, certainly very seldom less than 20 degrees Celsius. And that's very comfortably in the 60s in Fahrenheit. So it's a great time to come and visit if you ever come out here. Winter, they say, is South Africa's or the Lowveld's best kept secret, because people tend to come out in summer to avoid their own winter, and then they cook quietly here while they're here, and sometimes not so quietly. But the winter is a brilliant time to be out here. And so, yes, we will be carrying on these safaris throughout the year. Probably in the same format that they are now. We're talking about doing various different kinds of formats, possibly some nighttime stuff, possibly some hunting stuff. But in essence, we will be doing at least 2 live shows a day for the foreseeable future, winter included, and probably especially in the winter. The other reason the winter is so good, Wade, is that there's a lot less vegetation around, and so the animals are a lot easier to see. And by hunting stuff, what I mean is that at nighttime, we're looking into using some nighttime cameras, and that will allow us greater freedom to follow cats on the hunt, especially lion prides on the hunt, which at the moment, you see, the cameras that we have are they're fantastic in the daylight, but at nighttime, unless you've got a big light and you diffuse it carefully, and you've got to be really good with the light, and you've got a really good lighting in order to A, not disturb the animals, and B, light it up enough for the cameras. And so we're going to be doing some experiments with cameras that are better at night time, and that will then allow us to follow lion prides on the hunt. Thank you, Wade. Nice question. Right, a question from Miss Lobo Bob. Miss Lobo Bob, you want to know about the insect theory of zebra. I'm not sure, I can't remember it. I definitely read about it, but I don't remember it entirely. I think it's got something to do with the fact that, oh, look at that. Beautiful bird. As I avoid answering Miss Lobo Bob's question, I'll get back to you, Miss Lobo Bob. I think that's a little Wahlberg's eagle. There he is. Oh, look at that. Can you see him, Andrew? There he is. Beautiful. I think it's a Wahlberg's eagle. Let me just train my powerful binoculars on him. Oh, he's flitting about the place. You still see him, Andrew? Shall I speak forward? I've got a better view here. There we go. Don't fly, bird. Don't fly, don't fly, don't fly. Andrew, try and get in as tight as you can on his head. Is a wee full in?
Fully in.
What we want to look for here, people, is, the only other thing it could really be is a steppe eagle, but it looks much too small to me, and you'd tell by the extension of the cere, which is basically the lips of the bird, beyond the midpoint of the eye. That it doesn't do that on that bird. But what's making me slightly doubt my original diagnosis of a Wahlberg's eagle is the fact that it doesn't have that little crest at the back of the head. Oh, did you see the white there? I wonder if this isn't a little booted eagle. Right, I'm just going to get the book out. Let's see if we can't diagnose him. Oh, that's a very angry bird coming to chase him away. Doesn't like the presence of that predator there. I'll just quickly get out the brown eagles. They can be a little bit confusing, especially this time of year. Where's he gone? Forward, back. There we go. Forward. can see him. Oh, yes. Just watch him there. Oh, beautiful. Colour underneath. Yeah, I think that's just a... And Steffi reckons a lesser spotted. And it would certainly be the first lesser spotted that I've seen this year. No, it's... I'll tell you why it's not lesser spotted. You see, it's paler underneath than it is, a paler behind on the wings than it is in front. And a lesser spotted is the opposite of that, as I look at my book. Yeah, I think it's just a wallabies, I'm afraid. Right, I'll show you what I mean once Andrew's finished doing some sterling camera work there. Andrew, move more smoothly. It is extremely difficult to do what Andrew just did there, or is doing. Still see it, though, there you can. Now the tail looks a little bit wide for it to be a Wahlberg's eagle. That's very interesting. Right, so these are the sort of brown eagles that we get of round about that size. There's the booted. I don't think it was a booted eagle unless it had, it was a particularly dark morph of the booted eagle. And if you look down here, sorry, Andrew, if you can just go over to the left a little bit, there's the dark morph of the booted eagle. So they do get quite dark, but they are a bit more sort of scruffy on the top there. Then the other option was a lesser spotted eagle. And the reason I don't think it was a lesser spotted eagle, if we go back down to the flight patterns here, Andrew, you can see that they are very black on the hind edge of the wing, both the immature and the adult. And that one was very clearly paler on the hind part of the wing. And the only one of these brown eagles that is paler on the hind part of the wing like that is a brown morph Wahlberg's eagle. The other option is a very dark morph tawny, but I don't think that bird was big enough to be a tawny eagle, except that it didn't have that crest, and it also didn't have the very thin, distinctive tail. So from the size, I'm going to go with my original instinct of Wahlberg's eagle. Anybody who wishes to disagree with me, please feel free to send through your reasons. And yes, I'd be very interested to know. Right. Let's go back to Scott. I think he's got some predators to show you.
Well, we've got lucky. And even though they're asleep, they are lions. 3 of them that you can see piled up. Oh, perfect. Yes, we're talking about you. I'm just going to get a hold of Sid quickly on the radio from Arethusa. He's joining us. He was also looking for these lions just before we found them. Sid, I've got your audio. We're not too far.
Okay, thanks, guys.
And Sid actually suggested that we come and check out these roads. He was going to check other roads. I pulled over, saw some of their tracks, fresh tracks, and Brian spotted the lion from where we saw those first tracks. Oh, there's a big yawn. And isn't this awesome that a bit of teamwork between the guides, plus their knowledge of what was going on with this pride this morning, certainly helped us to find them. You can see they're panting quite heavily. That's because of the combination of factors, the heat, plus the fact that they are finishing off digesting a buffalo that they, I think, finished feeding on late last night. Now Now, I did mention earlier that we can expect to find 4 of them, and the other one is lying up. I just don't know if we're going to be able to get a gap from where we are here, but there are all 4 here. Well, very happy to hear that Michelle has allowed her geography class to be lucky enough to come to Africa on safari today. And Travis, you are asking if this is the same pride of lion that Sarah always talks about. Hello, Sarah and Travis, and yes, it certainly is. It's the Nkahuma pride. Like I said, there's 4 here. The other 1 lioness is away with the Birmingham male lions, who are their new boyfriends, and that's why we can only see 4 of them here. There's only actually 3 in this pile, and then off to the right, not too far away, there's another one lying down. Maybe this one that's getting up now is going to go and lie with the other lioness. But good that we're seeing a little bit of movement from them. Maybe they're getting a bit restless, maybe they're getting thirsty, maybe they want to have a drink. So she's heading over to the other one now. I'm sure you can possibly just make out the other one that she lay in front of. Good, so comfortable lions. There's a cool breeze blowing, and I'm guessing they're going to remain fairly comfortable for a short while, unless, of course, some more prey doesn't stumble upon them. And Kevin, you've just sent through a comment saying that every time you see these lions, they're full-bellied, and where are they getting all their food from? And it's a good question, Kevin. They've had a lucky streak over the last few weeks hunting buffalo, and that's all they've been feeding on that we've seen. So a couple of reasons why I think they have been successful in their buffalo hunting recently, and the main reason is that they are picking on prey that are getting quite weak. It's a drought. The herbivores are not as strong as they typically would be at this time of the year. This is the time of plenty, or at least it's supposed to be the time of plenty for the herbivores, but not so much. And because of that, it's causing them to be a little bit weaker than normal, a little bit slower than normal, and that's making for these lioness to have some very easy hunting opportunities. Well, let me reassess that. Not very easy, but easier than normal. And what we'll probably find is that this pride of lion, along with many of the lions in this area, are going to start really focusing on taking down buffalo. If they work out that the buffalo are getting a little bit weak, a little bit easier to take down than they normally are, they're going to keep aiming for them, because they're a perfect prey size. For a pride of lion like this, there's quite a lot of hungry mouths to feed, and a buffalo, especially a medium-sized buffalo, which is what they've been targeting, is perfect. Once they've brought that down, they're good to feed on it for 2 or 3 days, and then 3 or 4 days thereafter, they're probably not going to need another meal. So 1 kill provides them with kind of 1 week of good going. It's a good point though, Kevin. They have had a lucky streak, and hopefully we too will be in luck and be able to film them taking down one of their hardest prey, the Cape buffalo. And it's actually the only animal that we've successfully been able to capture hunting, or at least the only pride of lion that we've been able to successfully capture hunting from start to finish with the actual takedown. And they caught a big buffalo with Brent sometime last year, and there was an incredible sighting was had. There was a decent sighting of lion taking down buffalo with Peter Pretorius in November 2014 with the Birmingham boys, and actually Brian was on camera during that hunt. It's been Brian's only hunt, so Brian's hoping to get lucky again. And I guess the catch with that is that we missed the initial kind of takedown. We saw the lions running after the buffalo, and then as Brian and Peter came around the corner, the buffalo was already down. What happened thereafter was really interesting, and the rest of the herd came in and tried to chase the lion off their fellow herd member, but unsuccessfully. And it was mainly the one biggest Birmingham male at that stage, and he stood out quite a lot back then. He was by far the biggest in terms of body and mane, and he stood his ground while the other 4 lions wrestled the young buffalo. James Angelo, you would like to know exactly how hot it is, and it's 36 degrees Celsius, 96 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's an exceptionally hot afternoon here. Go ahead. So I just need to be on the radio and control the movements of the vehicles in the sighting. Yeah, stations, just to confirm, it's just myself here. Sid has moved out, and whoever's going to be making the way can control this if you don't mind. Okay, well, I've just hopefully signed out of the responsibility of controlling the sighting, which can be a task in its own, and I don't want to divert my attention away from you guys onto a busy radio wave. So now the only thing we can hope for now is, and I'm guessing probably for the next hour, and always remember that the words I use, i.e. I am guessing, means that I'm not downright stipulating that this is what the lions will do. I'm guessing, though, that they're only going to be up in about an hour's time. And that's due to the heat, it's due to general behavior of lions in this area and just my experience over the years with them. Of course, we could be pleasantly surprised, and it was just the other day that I was pleasantly surprised by these same lions. As I said, it's time to leave. We're not going to get to see any action. They got up and started feeding on the buffalo. It's a good example of how we don't always get it right. But today, like I said, I'm not expecting great things. It's not to say that I think we should go and map. By sitting here, we just increase our chances of getting lucky. We don't know what prey animals could stumble upon these lions now. And even though they are hot, and even though they are not extremely hungry, they will certainly try and take down whatever prey opportunities provide themselves to them. So that's what we need to hope for within the next hour. Thereafter, let's just hope that the lions get up and go for a drink. Red Dam is not too far from here, which is the closest little puddle of water. Hi, Deborah, the armchair traveller, all the way in New York. And I think, I can't shift very clearly on the radio at the moment, but I think you'd like to know an update on the Styx Pride. And it's... oh, sorry, it's not the Styx Pride, it's the 5th member of this Pride. And she's across on Torchwood, so she is east of Djuma. What I can do is, let me just get my map out quickly, and then I'll show you exactly what's going on. But I will update you on the Styx Pride as well while I'm at it, but I'm not going to be able to do that very easily with the map. Okay. So, I pulled up my little GPS here, and I can show you where we are now, which is this little blue dot. Okay. Now, to the north of us is a property called Sibambili, where we cannot go. Anywhere green is not for wild earth, it's for other people to drive along. This is the Arathusa waterhole over there. We are on the boundary of Sibambili and Arathusa over here. The lions had their kill, these same lions had their kill somewhere just about there. The buffalo kill most recently, so they haven't moved too far away from it. And Red Dam, like I said, is just over there, so that's the closest little puddle of water to where they are. Okay, now the 5th member of this pride has gone the whole way through Djuma and is on a property over here called Torchwood. So she is east of us at the moment. The Styx lioness are somewhere down over here. on a property called Mala Mala. I think that's where they are. I saw an update on our WhatsApp group, Sabi Sands Nyamazan, Nyamazan meaning animals, and all the guides in the various parts of the 60,000 hectare park open to the Kruger National Park, or keep in touch with one another with the various animals. This, to give you an idea, is probably about 2,000 hectares. So we have the ability to traverse 1/30th of the entirety of the Sabi Sands, and that's why it's important that all of us keep in touch with the various guides, because nobody can traverse the whole of the Sabi Sands with their guests. That's why it's so useful to be able to share information amongst the guides in the different traverse areas, so that we can keep tabs on animals that we all know. And Debbie, the fifth lioness, is across on Torchwood on some kind of a honeymoon, you could say. She is with one of, or at least I think a couple of the Birmingham boys, maybe just one of them. And I'm told 4 or 5 days ago they were very passionate and lots of mating was happening. But more recently the mating has subsided a little bit. So interesting behavior there. As usually they mate for 3 to 5 days. And speaking of lions mating, Tammy would like to know if there have been any lion cubs around at the moment. And sadly not, Tammy. No cubs to report that I know of. But I'm sure in the coming months we are going to get lucky, because the Birmingham boys have settled down. They've kind of established themselves in this area. And they have been seen mating with various lionesses from the various prides. Now the tricky thing straight after a takeover has happened is that lioness will mate with males in what is called a false estrus. So they'll do it simply to kind of help win the boys over, give them this false sense of manlyhood and macho-ness, and thereafter they may come into real season where they will actually be able to conceive. So difficult to know whether a lioness is in false estrus or full-blown estrus, but what is typical is that once a marauding coalition of males has come through, wreaked havoc, killed lioness, killed cubs, after a few months, the natural progression is that the lioness that they have now become friends with will be the mothers of their cubs. So I'm hoping it's not going to be too long until that happens. Hello, Isabella. Just 4 years old, and isn't it wonderful that people of all different ages, races, from all different continents around the world can all be on this safari vehicle together. Isabella, you've obviously been hearing Brian and I complaining about how hot it is today, and you're wondering if the lions will ever have to throw up because it's so hot. And not that I've ever seen, Isabella, and I think in general animals are a lot tougher than we are and will show signs of weakness a lot sooner than we do. So you'd probably find that Brian and myself would start stopping working as well before the lions did. And very happy that whilst explaining the whereabouts of the lioness within this pride, Michelle's geography class got a bit of an idea of how the GPS works and a bit of north, south, east, west. And what we'll be able to do, Michelle, a little bit later on, or on the sunrise safaris, is also help with teaching the class how to tell the direction from the sun. And even when we start spending more time out at night, we'll be able to tell the direction just from the stars. So those are going to be your future Safari Live geography lessons. But we don't want to overcrowd your notebooks today. Well, you guys are in luck. You are going across to some antelope doing a dance-off.
Now, Now, everybody, I know that we are looking through a fence here. We're at Vuyatela camp, but I just thought we should stop and have a look at these two nyala, which are in the throes, of course, of their little dressage dance. Now, yesterday, two days ago, Brian and I sat with the most astonishing sight, and I wonder if it wasn't these two nyala. I don't think it was, but could have been, having a real physical battle. It was the second time I'd ever seen it, but it was the most astonishingly physical fight, and we never normally see it, because this is what the nyala normally do. They sort of walk around each other with that ridge on the back of on their backs, extended, standing up. And this is their kind of, believe it or not, aggression. I mean, that is ridiculous. Now, that nyala that you can see with his back arched like that jumped over this fence from a standing start, and then proceeded to demonstrate his, well, I'm just not sure what you call that gait. A nyala walk, I suppose. Isn't that amazing? You can just feel the breeze starting to come up now. And these two are not just walking around. I mean, they are locked in a, well, I wouldn't describe it as mortal combat, but they're certainly locked in a very serious conversation with each other about who's got rights to what exactly. It is the most bizarre thing. And how this escalates into what was one of the most vicious fights I've ever seen out here, I'm just not sure. And I wonder, you know, if they haven't evolved this ability to kind of sort out their differences in this totally non-violent way because they are able to inflict such incredible damage on each other. And so as a way of sort of reducing conflict and making sure that any aggression doesn't escalate to the point of actual violence, maybe that's why they've evolved this kind of ability to sort out their differences with a silly-looking dance. Well, the other one, while that one you're looking at there is being... Well, I mean, it is quite funny. The other one has decided he's going to have an eat. He's going to have something to eat before he does his next round. And interestingly, he's grazing. He's eating grass, which, of course, is unusual for a nyala. They are predominantly browsers, of course. Andrew, how's our battery?
We're doing okay.
Okay. So we've just got a small battery problem here, but we seem to be okay for now. Oh, fight's over. He's just realized he's not being watched. No one cares. So now he's embarrassed, so he's going to have a little scratch. And look at all that fur. I mean, I imagine they must get pretty hot. And that's it. Isn't that amazing? Oh dear, I've unplugged myself. Sorry, Kirsten. There we go, I'm back in. And Iggy, as you say that the defence has proved itself by keeping animals out. Yes, it's largely here, not so much to keep things like nyala out, which of course it's absolutely hopeless at doing. It's mainly to keep those buffalo out, because at night, of course, when you walk through a camp like this, buffalo will often come and find a dark place to lie, and you don't want to surprise a buffalo at night. That's when they can be dangerous, because they can be easily surprised at night time. So it keeps them out. It'll keep that hippo out of the camp. You definitely don't want to come across him at night. And it will also keep, I mean, I know Karula spends a lot of time in this camp, but it would probably keep most lions out. And if they wanted to go over it, they probably could, but you'll find that they wouldn't necessarily do that unless there was a really good reason to go inside. All right, that was the nyalas. Just hearing some guinea fowl alarm calling, but I don't see that they're alarm calling at anything specifically. All right, we're going to go and change the camera now because this battery is going to die. And so let's hand you back to Scott and the lions, and I will see you on the end of another lens.
Well, isn't this one of the cuter poses you've seen Africa's most well-known big cat, the lion, resting in? Absolutely awesome. And we've repositioned the vehicle slightly, so we saw this little opportunity and couldn't resist to try and show it to you, and it's worked out quite well. The other two, just to give you an idea of where the rest of the animals are in relation to these two now. These are the two that we couldn't see as well earlier. The other two are off to the left. You can see one behind that tangle of branches and the other one slightly further off to the left. And initially we were actually parked way off to the left, kind of below a knobthorn tree over there. So that's where we were parked looking in on them. And now we've moved slightly further south and west of where we were. That was for Michelle's geography class. But obviously it's very difficult for you to work out the directions that we're moving in from where you guys are sitting in your classroom. But if any of you are wanting to become field guides or game rangers one day, directions are a very important thing to know. So I would suggest you start learning very quickly, and then you won't have to worry about that when you get out here. Hi there, Dawn, who's in Chicago. And Dawn's interested to know if I remember any prides that move through the southern Sabi Sands that are going to be on a specific property called Kirkman's. Dawn, sadly, I worked in the southern Sabi Sands at the start of my guiding career, which was, I always forget the dates, I think it was 2008 was when I started guiding in the southern Sabi Sands, and we didn't go as far as Kirkman's, so not too sure. And also obviously the pride dynamics has changed, but I'm guessing there's still the southern pride, I think, that moves around that you'll probably see at Kirkman's. But sadly, Dawn, I don't know enough about that area now, and certainly it's too far from where we are to have any kind of overlap of lions that we see here moving that far south. So I can't give you too much info, but there will be lions there, and there certainly will be leopards and all the other animals. And all it depends on is your luck over the few days that you're staying there as to how much quality of sightings you get. But what I can assure you is that the Sabi Sands is one place where you can be assured to see great game viewing, and it's just a matter of how lucky you get out here, basically. And like I was saying, Dawn, I started my career in that general area. I wasn't as far south and east as Kirkman's. I was further west. So I bordered the western section of the Sabi Sands, kind of squeezed between the southern and western sections. And I left there probably halfway through 2011, and then went and spent a couple of years in East Africa, a bit of time in in and around other places between then. And here I am now. And joined here back into the Sabi Sands from the end of 2014. And since I've been back, I haven't been back to visit the south. I've still got friends working at that same camp. But sadly, the traversing regulations are very, very strict in the Sabi Sands, and it's not easy to just drive through from the south to the north to visit your friends. But that is the reality, and a result of the huge amounts of poaching that happens in Africa. So that is a reality that we don't talk about too much, but it is happening, and there are animals under threat out here. Pamela, you have asked a good question, and the rest of your geography class should take note. You have thought about the rain patterns of Africa and of South Africa, and is wondering whether or not the weather conditions we get here are going to be the same throughout all the South African countries, or is it going to vary from place to place? And that's a wonderful question. And it is going to vary quite greatly from place to place. Even in South Africa, Pamela, the majority of our country has got summer rainfall, but the Cape area, so I'd say maybe a fifth or a sixth of our country, does receive winter rain, and it's called the Mediterranean climate, where they get winter rainfall and a dry summer. So we don't have that Mediterranean climate up here, further north, but it's an example of, even in the same country, how weather conditions will vary. And I know that up in East Africa, up in Kenya and Tanzania, there too, they've got a short rains and a long rains, and it falls over kind of different periods of time to where we get our rainfall here. So it does vary in the different parts of Africa that you go to, and therefore it's a very important thing to know when planning your safari. Depending on what you want to do and what you want to see, rainfall obviously has a big impact on the safari experience, so it's good to know when the rain is going to be falling wherever you are going. As we sit quietly for a while, the bush is still very silent, and I'm hoping that it does come alive a little bit later on as the evening cools down. It usually does, but take note of how quiet it is, other than a little bit of a breeze that you may hear blowing gently over the camera. The animals are all on the go slow, not just these lion, even the birds aren't even singing. Well, not as much as they will be later, I hope. Hello to Iggy, and you would like to know how many official guiding schools there are here in South Africa, and I'm not too sure. There's many different schools that you can go to, or training people that you can go and do a 1-month course or a 6-month course or a 1-year course. There's many different ones, obviously some with that are well reputed and well known, and other smaller ones that are possibly less well known. And let me emphasize that by well known, I don't necessarily mean better. It's simply, you know, people are aware of them, and often maybe the smaller training programs could sometimes be the better ones, maybe more intimate, one trainer, fewer students, but there are many different ways to go about getting your guiding qualifications here in South Africa. You don't actually have to do it through a training course or any certain school, you can apply to write the exams and do all the training yourself from the South African standard is the FGASA system, the Field Guides of Association of South Africa. And what that means is that they've got set exams that you need to complete in order to be able to go to an area and guide. Obviously, certain qualifications require practical training out in the field, especially to get your trails guide, which is your walking qualification, that you will need to do under certain mentorship and under certain professional guidance. You can't just do that on your own because there'll be nobody keeping track of how many encounters you've had with elephant, with lion, with all the different dangerous animals. But like I said, there's no shortage of different training facilities, and there are many different ways you can go about it. You can be trained up at a camp that employs you, that helps you to get the qualifications and mentorship that you need from the current guides that they have in their system. Or you could go to literally like a school where everybody starts on the same day and you do a one-year course, and thereafter that training provider will often try and place you at various lodges where they've built up connections and contacts and good relationships over the years. So many different ways to go about it. The most important thing to remember, Iggy, is that it's very easy, and if it wasn't, I wouldn't be sitting here. So it's not a difficult thing to do, and often it's as little as 6 months training that you need in order to just sit behind a vehicle and start your guiding career, and then you can add on the next qualifications, the trails guide, the specialist qualifications as you go along, depending on how qualified you would like to be. Let us know when you're coming out, Iggy. Hello to Wade in Arkansas, who would like to know how do we get into our areas of traverse if the traversing rules are so strict within the reserve. And it's a good question, Wade, and it sounds like you could be a new viewer. So firstly, welcome and thank you for sending your question through. Wade, basically how it works is that there are 3 entrance gates into the Sabi Sands. 2 are on the southern edge and 1 is on the northern edge. So if you work in the southern Sabi Sands, you have to enter through the southern gates, and if you work in the northern Sabi Sands, you have to enter through the northern gates. And to get from Gowrie Gate, which is the northern gate that we enter through, all the way around to either Newington Gate or Shaw's Gate, which are the two gates in the south, will probably take about 2 hours. Whereas to drive from Djuma to where my friends are in the south would probably take me 20 minutes. So that's the reason why it's a little bit tricky, and it's quite a long journey. It's not a hop and a skip to get into the other gates. And a lot of the guests, Wade, will actually fly into the Sabi Sands, and a lot of the camps have got their own airstrips. Tarmac airstrips that the guests fly straight into, and then it's a 3-minute drive to the camp. So you find most of the lodges in the Sabi Sands cater for minimal discomfort and maximum luxury for their guests, or obviously varying degrees and depending on where you go. Hello, Bailey. Also in Michelle's geography class, you would like to know if I ever use a compass. And no, Bailey, I haven't used a compass, but that's because I was lucky enough to be taught how to use the sun and the stars, which is easier than carrying a compass around. Of course, this is until, Bailey, the weather turns and it becomes cloudy. Because when it's cloudy and you cannot see the sun, as well as the stars, then it becomes very difficult and you can get lost. So I've had a few tricky moments, but I have actually never carried a compass. It probably would be a clever thing to have in case of an emergency, and I guess if your GPS breaks and the clouds come over so you can't see the sun or the stars, a compass is a very, very useful thing to have. So maybe I should buy one, Bailey. But up till now I haven't been using one. and haven't got too drastically stuck yet or lost. You're only temporarily unsure of your position. Oh, well, here's some interesting info that Stefan has kindly provided us with. Thank you, Steph. He's sitting in the final control. And apparently there are 33 official guiding schools in South Africa. So there we go, Iggy. You must just tell us which one you're going to decide to go to now. And what you'll find is, after having tuned into our safaris, you're probably going to be far, far ahead of the other students on the course, or at least I'd like to think so. And if there are any little bits and pieces that you're worried about or not sure about, please let us know, because we would love to assist you in any way possible in getting you to become a fully fledged guide, if that is in fact what you want. Come on, lions, or come on, buffalo, to the lions. I love it when they sleep on their back with their paws in the air. Sometimes they'll even try and use the surrounding branches of trees to kind of splay their body open. The one on the right could do with one of those now, because its leg keeps falling back down towards it. It needs a branch there. Oh, and back. And one more time, slowly back down. There we go. And back. No? Okay. Just going to get on the radio quickly and try and work out why nobody's coming to join us with these lions. Some people were expressing interest earlier. Are any stations interested in the Kuhumas? Okay, copy that. Keep coming, it's just myself here. We're just south of the road, you'll get our visual easily. Go ahead. Shane, the radio is a little bit crackly over here, which makes everyone's lives quite tricky. But we'll work it out eventually. Last station, go again.
Tristan, he said you must give him a call after drive, and I want to know where are you now. I'm on Jololo Junction, Katlan.
I'm on Southern Fork, south of Sibambili, Katlan. I think I've got one vehicle audio, I'm not sure who that is, and visual. We're directly west of you.
Talk to me, okay.
Now, even though we're in a lion sighting, strange things happen, and occasionally you get very lucky here in Africa, and some other strange beast pops onto the scene, and that's just what we've been hoping for today. Look at this. Is that a leopard cub? I think it is. Can you believe it? Probably best for it to get out of here before these lions catch its wind, but that looks like Karula's cub popped in for a visit. Taking chances already. But we don't mind that. We're quite happy to have a bold leopard cub running around. And who knows what they're up to in that little den at the moment. Of course, we all would love to know. But I think it's definitely the right decision that we give her some space. We keep ourselves away from that sighting until it makes sense for us to actually be there and enjoying the new additions. Who knows how many there are? Only one confirmed sighting of one from this morning with Brent. But once they get a little bit bigger in the next week, maybe two, then we can start probably spending more and more time with them, maybe even sooner than that, depending. But we're just going to ease into things, and in the meantime, we can let our imaginations run wild. And just imagine Karula in that little den. We know very well what it looks like, and you can imagine what a tiny little fur ball of leopard looks like. So just let the imagination run wild, and I guess be happy with the thought that the prospects of some incredible leopard cub viewing awaits us. Finally, after a year of no leopard cubs, we finally have hope that we are going to have some luck, which I'm certainly excited about. So just to keep you guys updated, it sounds like poor old James and Andrew are having a gremlin attack on Rust Buckets, their vehicle, and are having trouble getting the camera or whatever they're trying to get fixed. So that's why you're not hopping across back to them for an update. As soon as we get any further updates on them, we will let you know. Gracie, aged 8, you remarked that it's so cute the way these lions have been snuggling with one another, and it really is. I mean, it's surprising how animals that can be so fierce when they need to be can also be so loving. And you wondering if they're missing Junior. I would love to know, Gracie. I'm not convinced that they are, but maybe they are. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do miss him. Or maybe they just understand that it was time for him to carry on, and maybe they're happy for him. Maybe they are happy for him to move off and become a big lion, as he was always going to do. He was never going to stay with them forever, and maybe they knew that. So maybe that made it easier for him, or for them, for all of them, when he left.
Yeah, my mother.
What they will miss, though, is the fact that he was big and strong and good for hunting. Last station, if you just head along Southern Fork, you'll get up my visual from the road.
My Southern Fork now.
Okay, we'll head west, and then you'll get visual from the road. Good question though, Gracie. Now we are sitting downwind of these lines, even though it's just a very slight breeze, and we're probably about 20 meters away. And Jeff is asking whether we can smell them, or if they're smelly animals. And not really. They're not nearly as pungent as wild dog, which is the most pungent of the carnivores. And maybe if you're snuggling up with them, which is something I've never done, maybe then you could smell them, and maybe they've got bad breath from chewing on buffalo. But they're not incredibly pungent, no, Jeff. So it's very seldom that you actually smell lions. Or at least my little nostrils don't. Brian, how do your nostrils work with lions?
Today they smell okay.
Okay, yeah. So Brian says today they smell good. Right. Nothing to really smell there.
Up my side. Good.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Scott, Maria. So I just want to find out time-wise, how long you're going to be there. On first standby.
Mono, make your way directly as soon as you get your make space.
You sure?
Yes, 100% sure.
Okay, good, on my way.
Okay, so 2 vehicles have just arrived simultaneously, and a third is on the way. And it's very important that we maintain good relations with all the guides so that we make sure that we get snuck into sightings just like they're sneaking in now. So I've offered the third vehicle, who's on a first standby, to come and join us. And rather than taking up good parking spots now, I'll probably head off right away. Leaving 2 stations with the Inkahumas lying up, Monet making his way as a third. Okay, so sorry about that abrupt departure, but like I said, it's important just to keep good relations with the guides, and there was only a good spot really for 2 vehicles to get a view from where we were parked. So I just thought, rather than causing all the other vehicles to reposition a million times once we've left, that we make space for them now. Now what I plan to do is keep in the general area and maybe head to Red Dam, maybe see some animals taking a drink there, and if not, maybe these vehicles will head off for their gin and tonics, for their sundowners, leaving these lines unattended. Maybe we'll be able to sneak back in. So that's the plan, and at least while they're sleeping, we can leave them, and maybe we'll get lucky when they come back. Good afternoon. Hello everyone. Have fun. And you would like to know if we get any massive birds out here that can compete with the Andean condor, which has a massive wingspan. And I've heard varying reports. The marabou stork has got one of the largest wingspans, and I'm told by some sources that it's bigger than a condor, by others that it's slightly smaller, but they're similar. I mean, they're both massive birds, the marabou stork. In terms of weight, the condor might be a little bit heavier than the marabou stork. I think you said 27 pounds. I mean, that's ginormous. Maybe the marabou's up in that kind of area, but not convinced, and it's not quite the same in terms of the type of bird. I mean, the condors are part of the raptor family, whereas the marabou storks are storks. In terms of big raptors, though, we do have the Martial eagle here with a wingspan of up to 260 centimeters. So ginormous wingspan, but not nearly as heavy as the condor. That Martial eagle will probably only weigh about 10 to 12 pounds, I'm guessing. Jason, good to know you're watching. And Jason was actually here just a few months ago, everyone. Just before we did the Big Cat Week for Nat Geo, and Jason was one of the top journalists selected for the assignment to come out and check out what we do. And Jason, it's so awesome to hear that you're watching. What Jason's just remarked is also awesome, and that is that when he was here, he got to see Karula, he got to meet Karula, and now, just a couple of months down the line, he's heard that she's got cubs, and you definitely, if they survive, crossing fingers, are going to be able to watch them grow up, and who knows, maybe you'll be able to come back and visit once they have grown up, Jason. That'll be a wonderful full circle of events. And it's actually not uncommon for a lot of guests who come to the Sabi Sands to keep track of the animals that they come to. And even though I don't agree with going back to the same place in Africa year in and year out, because there's so many different places to go and see, that is the benefits, I guess, of going back to the one place that you do fall in love with, because you do get to see those animals and how their cubs are coming along and all those progressions. And we must all be grateful that we are in a situation where so many guides collectively help to keep track of all these animals, understand what they're doing, understand who they're mating with, even if we don't necessarily see. It's just so cool to know that somebody's keeping tabs of them, and then we can all pull that information together and get great insights into their lives. Jason, like I said, awesome to hear that you are joining us on this safari, and make sure you let us know when you do that again. Can you believe this? 1. Hold on, Brian. 2. 3. And 4. Oh, just gonna get my radio out the way. How cool is this? And I saw a lot of hyena tracks here, but I really wasn't expecting that we were going to bump into them, so this is a good spot to be aware of, because I'm guessing that these hyena might have a den maybe nearby. Who knows? Maybe it's because of that buffalo kill that was in this area that the Nkuhuma lioness finished off late last night. Look at the beautiful sunlight on them as they disappear. And you'll notice some of them were muddy and wet, and that's because they have been wallowing in a tiny little mud wallow just off the side of the road here. And they're one of the only carnivores here in Africa that readily wallows happily in the mud. Lion, leopard, cheetah. Oh, I lie, wild dog will also immerse themselves in water. Nearly got caught out there. But the big cats don't, and I guess because hyena are more closely related to cats than dogs, they should gain credit for this. This hyena is about to pop into a little clearing, so make sure you're ready to take some screenshots. There's going to be some beautiful light on it. Come on. The rest of the clan have all moved off in that same direction. Oh, she's turned around. Not wanting to provide you guys with that opportunity for a screenshot. Let's see if we can't reposition. Maybe if we go forward a little bit, it'll be better. The little mud wallows just here where they were. There you can see. And let's hope that we get a little bit more rain to keep all these little wallows full of moisture. Apparently there's a chance that there could be some towards the end of the week. Oh, it's tricky. It just lay down there. It's in the center of your frame, but not easy to see. So let's carry on. To Ellen in Arkansas. We've got lucky, there's some hyena still playing around here. And there you can see the adult with that wet side and rump. Oh, awesome. Sorry, Ellen. You've been wondering, why is it that other animals like kudu and inyala and a whole host of different animals do not swim? Do not immerse themselves in the water to keep cool? Have you just not been seeing it, or does it not actually happen? And it doesn't happen. And why? I'm not too sure exactly. I mean, the first thought that comes to mind is a lot of the prey animals will be concerned for crocodiles, which could occur in any little body of water in the African wilderness, and that's an important lesson in itself. Wherever you may think it is safe to swim, it is not necessarily the case. And even if you've been driving up and down a road for 10 years every day and never seen a crocodile in a puddle, That's not to say that there will not be one there when you go for a swim. So be ready for that. Be ready for a crocodile to latch onto you if you are swimming in a body of water where crocodiles do have access to, even if the chances are slim. And that's possibly the kind of mindset that a lot of the animals adapt, or adopt rather, that water is not necessarily safe. To put things in context, it wasn't too long ago in the southern Sabi Sands at a particular camp here where a big male lion was drinking out of one of the water holes, and everyone was enjoying this magical scene until the crocodile came out, patam, and pulled a fully grown male lion under the water with no problems at all. So even the king of the jungle can get taught a lesson by the crocodiles. But that's not for me, a good enough reason as to why the kudu don't, mud wallow or the inyala. Because the buffalo certainly do, and they benefit from it. And the kudu's coat is not hugely dissimilar to a buffalo's coat. So who knows what causes that, but the only real herbivores to wallow are the ones with shorter hair as a general rule, or no real hair. Rhinoceros, elephants, warthog, the grey animals with not much hair, and also the Cape buffalo. What else am I missing? Most of the other antelope and animals throughout Africa will not immerse themselves in water, even if it's not necessarily muddy. They don't really like it. Let's see if we can get this quickly, Brian. Oh, there goes one, but there is one left there. There were some woodlands kingfishers that you may have heard. Chickadee, chickadee, chickadee. You bottom right there. There we go. And what they do when they are letting off that call, and why I tried to go for it, dropping Brian in the deep end, was they hold their beautiful turquoise wings up, and it creates quite a good display. I haven't been able to capture this display for you so far this summer, and come winter these birds are not going to be here. So the clock's ticking. I'm not sure if any of the other presenters have caught them in full display. I don't think they have. What it's doing now, though, is hunting. Look at how it's bobbling its head from side to side, trying to focus on something down there. And if we're lucky, we may... Ooh, that's looking good. I love the way they bobble their head like that to try and obviously fine-tune and calculate exactly how far away their prey is, what exactly it is. And their prey, interestingly enough, despite their name being a kingfisher, they are actually king insectors. They are not kingfishers. They do not eat fish, as do the majority of the kingfishers that we actually see here. They are not reliant on water unless it's for bathing in the evening and for drinking. They do all of their hunting out in the bushveld, like this one now. Come on. Now, very often people would like to see kills, and myself included, because it's not something... Oh! Well done, Brian! That was incredible! Brian's showing off now, and even though it didn't make a kill, the film work and the videography there was... As Kirsty said, Brian just killed it. No death required when Brian's on camera. Good work, Brian. And I thought it was going to plunge down onto the earth and pick up a grasshopper, but it just kept going, which obviously kept making Brian's life difficult. But that was great. A great display, and you may have seen a flash of that electric turquoise blue as the wings were beating back and forth.
Okay, copy that. I'll check on the side as well.
Just trying to keep an ear on the crackly radio here, that's why I've turned it up, so apologies for that. But I just want to make sure I keep tabs of what's going on with those lines and other vehicle movements there. Okay, Tom in Dallas, thank you very much for doing a little bit more digging around for information on the condor versus the marabou stork. And according to Wikipedia, the marabou stork is a little bit smaller, a foot less in wingspan. So thank you so much for that, and it's really wonderful that you can share this information with us. Now, I'm just going to jump out quickly. Bill Burkett, I guess you're also happy that Tom has done some research for us on the birds. What do you think of my radio, guys? Pretty fancy. Speaking of birds, look at this feather. And I'm guessing it was a feather from a vulture. Possibly vultures that were sitting up. I don't know if you looked up just a few moments ago, and there's a knobthorn tree. It's going to be close to impossible for Brian to show you, but there's a dead tree behind us, where I'm guessing a lot of the vultures were perched, and they were the vultures that were waiting for the buffalo, or the remains of the buffalo that the Nkuhuma lions had killed. And there's obviously a lot of feather ruffling over here, which caused them to lose a few of their feathers. Usually you find these little white down feathers in and around the kill for a carcass. So maybe it's that a hyena dragged a portion of the carcass into this area and they squabbled over it here. The telltale signs, those little white down feathers of vultures squabbling over some food. Shame poor old James and Andrew, and I'm sure the tech guys are pulling their hair out, no doubt, trying to get the rust bucket back to life, but it is not looking hugely promising at this stage, I don't think. But they are hard at work, so that's why you guys have been stuck with me. I just assumed it wasn't looking promising. It is actually looking promising, so forgive me for that pessimism, but like I say, apparently it is looking good that they will get that other camera and vehicle up and running. To Aqua, if you are interested to know which animal outside of Africa I would like to see, and probably the top of the list would be a tiger. Siberian Bengal, Sumatran, any kind of tiger I will be happy with, but you do get various subspecies thereof, and some are quite a lot larger than the others. I don't know a huge deal about that, but like I say, any tiger in its natural habitat would be an incredible animal to see and spend time with. While we're on the topic Aqua, if you don't mind, I will tell you more than just the one animal. Second one, probably also high up on the list, is the jaguar, which you can see hunting caiman crocodiles in various parts of the Pantanal, I'm told. That would be another highlight for me. Polar bears would be cool, not only because they're awesome animals, but because of the habitat that you find them in, and no doubt when searching for polar bears you're going to be able to tick off a lot of other animals off your list. I guess the same goes for jaguar and tiger. They both occur in very cool wilderness areas. Then within Africa, another one, so we're breaking the rules now, but still on the topic of my wish list of animals not yet seen, are some of the primates that occur in the central parts of Africa. The gorilla would be one, as well as, or the mountain gorilla and the lowland gorilla, I guess both thereof would be good, as well as a baboon-like animal called the gelada, which live in massive troops of up to 800 animals in the Ethiopian highlands. And you should see the hair that these geladas have. It looks like they each have their own hairstylist that preps them every day. Long, brown, flowing hair, blondie brown, and just the most remarkable condition that it's kept in. They also have the ability to kind of flap their lips open and with their massive fangs. It's a very interesting display that they can do. But Aqua, yeah, I mean, there are just so many places on this planet that I would love to check. Yellowstone National Park and the wolves that run around there, bison would be a wonderful animal to see. So, like I say, keep spreading the word of Safari Live, and we in turn will be able to take you on safari just about anywhere. All we need is more people to join in. That's the only thing holding us back at this stage. So if you'd like to see more animals, as I do, help us by telling your friends. So we've arrived at Red Dam, a little puddle that I was hoping was going to provide us with some animals taking a drink. So, nothing to see at first glance, and I just got a question through wondering about the sable that we got a glimpse of a couple of weeks back on the Djuma waterhole camera. Not a couple of weeks, probably a week or so ago, and no, we have not seen any further sign of that sable. So not too sure where it's ended up. It only evidently gets seen on waterhole cameras, either the Nkoro waterhole camera or the Djuma, which is where it's been seen, I think, on 2 occasions, or further north and west on the Djuma waterhole camera. I actually haven't heard, this doesn't mean that it hasn't happened, that any guides have actually seen it in the flesh. So maybe it's a ghost, this big bull sable, but there have been no reports that I've heard of it being seen since that glimpse that was had on the Djuma waterhole camera. Let's hope that changes, because they are incredibly beautiful specimens, especially him, at least, on his own, is a fine bull. Let's have a look at the sunset while we are parked here, and it's a wonderful stage of the evening. You can already hear now the birds are beginning to call a little bit more than they were when we were stuck with the lions. Let's just keep quiet for a minute or so and see what sounds we can hear. Just turning off the radio quickly. Oh, that Franklin just took off in a bit of a rush. Choo, 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 choo. Who knows what gave it a fright? A few emerald-spotted wood doves calling, woodlids, kingfishers. I can hear a few flies buzzing around my head. I'm not sure if you can hear the flies. Bzzz. Absolutely marvelous. What a wonderful playground we are so fortunate to explore on a daily basis. And it's always great to have you guys along. What's also great is that we've got some good news, and that is that James and Andrew and the tech guys have cracked the code, solved the puzzle, and you're going back to them to get an update as to exactly what was going on.
Hello everybody, sorry about our prolonged absence from the safari this evening, but Andrew had to, well, basically relearn to use a camera. We've changed 7,000 settings. There are another 5,000 that we could change. There's a kudu. Andrew, do you think you could extend to filming that kudu?
Let's give it a bash.
Let's give it a bash. There we go. Brave, stout fellow. Now let's try and level it a bit. Yeah, it would be nice. That's it. Well done.
There we go.
Right, now the zoom you will see is extremely fast. There it is zooming in at top speed. Now this camera, I'm being a bit rude about it, everybody, but it's actually brilliant in low light conditions, which we aren't in yet. But this is the kind of camera that we will be using to film the cats hunting in the night. Now, rather like its Nyala colleague earlier today, this kudu is grazing, which is unusual for a kudu. They are browsers by default. And the heat has dissipated, as I'm sure Scott has said, with the sun disappearing over the western horizon. We're very grateful for this. Right, well done, Andrew. It's your first animal with the A7S. Hello, Yossi. You want to know how many antelope species there are in the area? I'm going to list them for you, and then you can count them. We've got Steenbok and Duiker, the two little ones. Then we've got the Tragelaphid, which are the bushbuck, the Nyala, and the kudu. Then we have got the waterbuck. Then we have got, I suppose, a wildebeest you could count as an antelope. Then we've got impala, of course. Andrew, am I leaving anything out?
I'm too busy trying to find this.
Oh, right. Okay. I think it's about 8, Yossi. I may have left out 1 or 2. I think that's about it. Sorry, Kirsten just said something in my ear. I think she's thought of one that I haven't said. Kirsten, say that again, slowly, with clarity. Oh, of course, and we had a sable the other day. And the sable would be an excellent one. So 9 species of antelope. And those are the most beautiful antelope. They're the sable, the part of the hippo tragi, which means horse-like antelope. And they do have a rather horse-like look to them. They're not vaguely related to horses. They are antelope. Thank you, Yossi, for that. I shall try and remember that we've seen 9 species of antelope here. Then, of course, in the Greater Kruger National Park, there are lots more than that. I mean, you'll find eland, you will find some red hartebeest, you'll find sesame sometimes, roan antelope. You may even find a Sunni. You might find a Sunni in some of the forested areas. And I said eland. Yeah, so you'll find another 5 or 6 different antelope species. A Sharp's Grijsbok is another one, which we could possibly get here, but it's unlikely. Oh, and a reedbuck. Reedbuck you'd find sort of on the river. Ooh. No. So, Andrew, you may have heard him say no there, and that's because there was a beautiful pale-form Wahlberg's eagle flying overhead. It's still flying overhead, but to persuade this camera to film it in a manner where you would actually recognize it. Andrew, look at it. You have to film it. It's diving. It's going to kill something. Or just land in the tree. There we go. It's in that blurry sort of green thing there that you can see in the middle of your screen. Now, Gracie, aged 8, thank you very, very much for your kind compliment. You say that those Nyala weren't dancing nearly as well as Brent and I. Thank you very much. I agree with that completely. Brent and I are excellent Nyala dancers. I'm very glad, however, Gracie, that Brent and I have never had a fight like the ones that were fighting the other day when they were bashing their heads together. Brent and I will certainly smash our heads and we'd have a very bad headache. we have ever had a fight like that. Brent, of course, has a skull as thick as basically this large marula tree I'm going past, so I wouldn't sort of just back my chances. Well done, Andrew, that was very fast. This new camera. You see, you're getting the hang of it. You'll see me looking down to the left every so often, and I'm looking at the screen down here to see if I'm in focus. If I'm not, of course, I will just make a little black mark, and you know, that'll just be a sort of something that Andrew will owe me. Angela, very good question. I know it is extremely confusing for those of you who are, especially for the regular watchers. You say, don't we have 3 vehicles? Yes, we do. You want to know the Jigger is up and running or down. Jigger is what Scott is on at the moment. And you say, so you use the term, has a Jigger bitten the dust? Not yet. I feel this is an imminent eventuality. Wendy at the moment is eating dust. They are trying desperately to perform a Lazarus-like job on her, trying to make her resurrect there in Hoedspruit. But you know, these are old cars. These Land Rovers are now pushing 20, and you know, they've never been the most reliable at the best of times. So yeah, I mean, they're pretty old, and we do have to tape them together, tie them together, you know, apply bits and pieces of chewing gum here and there, some string, dental floss to put the clutches back on and that sort of thing. So yeah, we have to do a lot of work to keep them moving. Thankfully, we do have 3 at the moment, because of course, for most of the time we've only had 2, and then we'd definitely be in some straits. Even our little Mahindra went down the other day, but it's back up and running. I think we're going to get a magnificent shot of the sun. Now, Andrew, the sun doesn't move very fast, so I'm hoping you might be able to focus on that. Will that be all right, do you think? Yes. Thank you, Heidi. This is the greatest compliment that you could ever pay me. You say that you have to, and I mean that, you have to time your coffee sips quite carefully. I'm assuming so that you don't spit your coffee onto your screen as Andrew and I drive around. I'm very glad that you find us amusing every so often. We do our best. Now, there is a magnificent sunset about to happen. Andrew, I'm going to get you into position. Woe betide you make a mess of this one. You don't have to film the European roller that just flew off. Here we go. Oh, this is going to be too wonderful. Right. Oh, and there's a big vulture as well. There you go. Look at that, everybody. We'll eventually get an idea of it when Andrew gets his act together. That is spectacular. Isn't that wonderful? And look at that beautiful vulture in the... Well, no, don't worry about the vulture, Andrew. You just stick on the sun there. Baby steps. And it's enormous like that, of course, simply because it looks like a lot of smoke there on the western horizon, and you know, as I've said before, there's a lot of forestry in the mountains there that you can see, and I wonder if there isn't a fire in one of those forests. Very dry, as you know, and so unusually for this time of year, there will be fires around. Certainly it looks like that sort of red color is being caused by by smoke. What a stunning sunset that is. It is now time to exhale. Take a deep breath as the changing of the guard happens, and appreciate the sounds of the African night that are about to assail our ears. What I can hear is dwarf mongoose alarm calling. And that, of course, is the sound that gives them their Shangaan name, which is Matsigitoch. It's an onomatopoeic name. Andrew, don't you like the word onomatopoeia?
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
I got the vulture, James.
You got the vulture, well done.
You missed it, I'm back on the sun now.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, Andrew. I was just so astonished by the sunset. I was mesmerized. There is the sun sunk down below the Drakensberg Mountains. Now, everybody, what I would like you to do is take a deep breath in through your nose. Smell the dust, the subtle scent of a few of the herbs that were sort of driven over, wild aniseed, some sage, and then breathe out with your mouth and enjoy the peace of the African evening. I think it's just wonderful, just like that vulture's done. Right, there's the vulture, and they hang their wings out like that, apparently to allow the feathers and the barb and the filaments of the feathers to realign themselves. Because, of course, when they fly, although they don't do a lot of flapping, the vultures, there is a certain amount of wear and tear that comes from hanging in the air all day long. And I think what you'll find is that vulture is just holding his wings out so that everything can realign itself. He will do some preening. I say he, it could easily be a she. They will do some preening and just realign things so that when tomorrow comes and he takes to the air as the thermals start to rise off the ground, which in the current heat situations will probably be about 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, not quite, but it'll be pretty early on, so that when he does take to the air, he will be able to fly those enormous distances, hundreds of kilometers sometimes, in just one day. Very nice, Andrew. I'm assuming you're intentionally making him a silhouette there, are you?
No, it's just doing that by default.
Yeah. Right, we'll carry on now. Thank you very much, Linda in Massachusetts. Some kind compliments. You say that it's the first time you've talked to us. You're a regular watcher, but the first time you've talked to us. Well, it's very lovely to hear from you, Linda. And just as Linda has done, everybody, when you do talk to us, and we do encourage you to, please don't ever feel like there's a question you can't ask, or that you should know something, or perhaps it's been asked before. It doesn't matter. So please do get hold of us, and always tell us where you're from, because it's always so nice to hear where in the world our viewers are from. And Linda, you also paid a very kind compliment to the cameramen who do an amazing job. And while I malign Andrew on live internet, I agree with you. They do an astonishingly good job. I realized that one day when we were a bit short. I just started here and they said, well, why don't you operate the camera? And I thought, well, I mean, how hard could it be? Well, everybody in the final control was seasick for a week afterwards, so I can only imagine how appalling the viewers must have felt. So yes, the cameramen do a superb job. Now, Andrew, speaking of superb jobs, we have a European roller here. It is not, in fact, moving at the moment, so shouldn't present too much of a challenge. Andrew's just going to zoom in with great speed on this camera. There we go. That's it. European roller. Also silhouetted. You can't blow the ISO, can you? No. Let's just try something here. There we go. See if can see maybe a little blue tinge. No. Well, blue tinge of the European roller. And below them, some impala. No, Andrew, now it's black.
How about this?
That's beautiful. Right.
How about this, James?
That's ridiculous, Andrew.
Too much, eh?
Yeah, no, that's too much. You should stop now. That's perfect. That's lovely. There's some impala below that I'd really like to look at. There we go. Well done. And they're standing here. They'll come out into the open as the light starts to fade, because it's easier for them to see the predators. Now that kind of thing that Andrew's doing with this camera is why we've got it. Most cameras, certainly the others that we use, are not able to push what we call the ISO as much as that. I don't know what ISO stands for. Do you, Andrew?
Haven't got a clue.
No clue. Let's sneak slowly forward, as slowly as the zoom is retracting. We'll get the hang of it, I promise. Right, Scott has cleverly gone back towards the lions because they are, because they are likely to start moving around about now. So let's head back there, and I'm going to keep on down this road.
So, I know a girl was hoping that we were going to get one more glimpse of the lions. So there we go, a girl watching on YouTube. Not much has changed other than the three guides that were here with the guests. They've left and are probably enjoying a drink somewhere. The lion are still fast asleep. And other than a little bit of movement to attack the pesky flies, of which you can see a couple on this one's head, I think, buzzing around the ears. They've had a few attacks on the flies, but other than that, sleepy for now. And let's see if on cue they don't actually change tune. That one at the back got up first, and it was initially 4 flies, and I think its movement caused the other one to stir. But it is that stage of the evening where they will be slowly waking up, wondering where to head next, where they'll maybe go to quench their thirst. There are quite a few puddles around this area that are filled up into the mud wallows, so they're not going to have too much trouble. And let's hope that they decide to head either deeper into Arathusa or back onto Djuma, so we can hopefully find them first thing tomorrow on the sunrise safari. Oh, big yawn, get ready for screenshots. Oh, beautiful. Didn't give you much warning there, but another one could come. So be ready for a second or third yawn. Hello to Andre in Florida, who's interested to know if lion or leopard will ever give birth to cubs outside of their territory. And it would be highly unlikely that they would do this, because both them and their cubs would be at risk of getting into a brawl with the rightful owner of that territory. And that's why it's uncommon for that to happen. In all of my time in the bush, I've never seen or heard of that happening. Of course, there are always exceptions in nature, and nothing is ever hard fact or a certain rule. But I think it's highly unlikely, like I say, for the risks involved for any mother to want to give birth outside of her territory. caught her attention down there. I don't know if it was a fly or another kind of insect. She almost seemed a little bit scared of it. But even she, after showing a little bit of signs of waking up, is looking like she's dozing back to bed again. And it's no different to us waking up early in the morning. It takes sometimes a few attempts before we get up. And I'm guessing it's going to be the same for these girls tonight. I was hoping there was going to be some possible prey in the surrounding areas, but we haven't seen anything when we looped around this block to give the guide some time to enjoy the sighting. And on our way back in, we were scanning, hoping that there was going to be something that would catch these lions' attention. But nothing yet. Hi there, Anna. And as we see these lions fighting off the flies every now and then, your question is pertinent because you would like to know if lions ever climb trees. And yes, there are certain lions in certain parts of Africa that have adapted and evolved to becoming tree climbers as part of an almost daily routine. And it's in areas of extreme heat as well as areas with extremely high parasite loads and fly loads. And by being up in the trees where there's more of a breeze, I guess it's harder for the flies to find the lions. There's more of a breeze to keep them cool and blow the flies away from them. And that's why they do sleep up in trees. But those are the main two reasons to escape flies and heat. And all lions have the capability of climbing, none of them nearly as well as leopards, even the ones that are tree climbers and are practiced and seasoned at doing that. Obviously it would have helped growing up in a pride of tree climbing lions. You're going to be better at it than, oh, it's trying to help its friend there by attacking that one fly that keeps landing on the bottom. Look, oh, this is awesome. But I guess possibly there's reasons why it doesn't happen here in the Sabi Sands very often, possibly the wrong trees. The marula trees, which are the trees the leopards love sleeping in, aren't quite suitable for lion, whereas in the areas where you do find tree climbing lions, often the trees are quite easy to climb, very thick horizontal branches, and like I said, not tricky to climb. Oh, back to bed for you. Good question though, and I've never actually seen tree climbing lions, but I know you get a few up in East Africa, in various parts of Kenya and Tanzania. And I'm forgetting where else you've seen, possibly in Botswana you get them occasionally in certain areas, but there are renowned areas where you will find tree climbing lions. There were actually a few in a reserve where I worked in southern Tanzania called the Katavi National Park, but it wasn't a very common occurrence to see them up in trees there. You can see this one has just had enough of these flies, and I think they're winning the physical as well as the mental battle as this lion is getting agitated by them, as is this one. Good signs, and I guess we can thank the flies for helping get these lions out of bed a little bit earlier than they would have liked to be. And this one's going to come now possibly straight past the vehicle after a short toilet break, which I'm sure she's going to stop for any moment now. Nope, just wants to change the scenery. But don't worry, lioness, I can assure you, despite your efforts to move away from the flies, they will continue to follow you. They're not only bothering the lions, they're also bothering Brian and myself. There are hundreds of these tiny little flies buzzing all around us. Hello to King Calification, and certainly haven't heard your interesting name over the radio waves before, so I'm guessing you're new to the safari experience, and also the fact that you are wanting to know where exactly is this happening confirms that. So welcome on board, great to have you with us, and we're basically in the northeastern corner of South Africa, close to the border of Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and we're in a massive national park, Transfrontier National Park, called the Kruger National Park, which opens into Zimbabwe. More about Safari Live, what we do and where we are in the coming drives with you, so we look forward to chatting. Good news. There's an unexpected addition to Djuma that you are about to see, a late edition.
It is a late edition here, late in the game drive, of course, and that is a young newborn impala. Most of them, of course, dropped during the first 2 weeks of last 2 weeks of November. Now, it's not unexpected to find them every so often popping out in sort of early March. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, yes, early March, because there is a secondary breeding season in September, and I wonder if this isn't it may have been a slightly early one this year, and perhaps this is the offspring of one of that secondary breeding season. And of course, this is what has given rise to the notion that impala are able to hold back their youngsters until conditions are favorable. And that is absolute horse dung. And it's because of the secondary breeding season that they have that we find these late youngsters. Isn't that lovely? And it's for the females who don't fall pregnant in May, during the traditional time when they would get pregnant in this area. All right, everybody, that's us. That's it from us. I'm sorry that it was a little bit disjointed, but we're going to hand you across to Scott for the last few minutes of the drive. The lions are on their way. I don't know where they are, moving a little bit. Big thank you to Andrew for your sterling efforts on the 6 or 7 cameras we used today. Thank you to Kirsty, of course, in Final Control with Nikki. Let's go straight back across to Scott, and I will see you tomorrow morning at 05:30. Bye-bye.
So awesome that there's a few more baby impala running around, and I think it's the second one from this kind of second calving period. We got a glimpse of one on a bushwalk the other day, and now James with this one, so good news. Also nice to see the lions have moved out into the open, and that you got to see at least the last one flopping down into this spot. I think it is the flies that cause them to move, a kind of fairly hopeless attempt to get rid of the flies, because of course it's easy to fly just a few meters and land back directly onto the lions that you've been already pestering the whole afternoon. And who knows where they're going to head from here. At the moment, they've headed ever so slightly in a westerly direction. Obviously, it doesn't mean that they will continue in that direction, but if they do, it means we'll probably have to come across to Arathusa if we want to find them in the morning. But I'm sure between James and myself, it'll be part of our plan to try and work out what these ladies get up to in the course of the night. And I always wonder when we leave them on evenings like this, what exactly they're going to get up to, where they're going to go. They are most active at night, and most action happens then. That's why you can't help but wonder what is in store for them, or more importantly, what is in store for the animals that they come across. Hello, Deborah, armchair traveller, and you interested to know whether or not we will be heading out any later in the afternoon going forward due to the heat? And no, Deborah, we won't. We're just going to have to deal with the heat. And the reason why, Deborah, is that the sun is actually setting earlier every evening. So basically the time will stay as it is until a point when it's setting much earlier. And we'll start actually heading out a little bit later, so that we're only going to be going out any later than we are now, And I guess if a change was going to be made, it should have been made a couple of weeks back. So we missed the opportunity to make the afternoon drives a little bit shorter. Oh, sorry, not shorter. Heading out a little bit later. So, like I said, the only time changes will be probably in about a month or so's time, when we may be heading out slightly later, or slightly earlier, I apologize, in the afternoon. Okay, well, it is sadly time to say goodbye to everyone, and it's been great fun. Of course, apologies for not getting as much of James and Andrew as you would have liked to, but at least they did manage to temporarily solve that problem with their camera and did get out for the end of the safari with you. Well done, Brian. Always good to be out with you. Thank you to Kirsty, who directed the show, as well as Nikki, who was lending her hand. To all the new viewers, to all the old viewers, it's been another wonderful safari with all of you, and we are really looking forward to what the morning holds. So make sure to tune in for the sunrise safari. Take your last few seconds to look at the lions.